Wel, shwmae pawb, and croeso I goginio gyda fi. Hello everyone and welcome to Cook With Me. My name is Richard and today we're going to be making some Dinca Fala, or some little Welsh apple cakes that I promise you are absolutely blasus iawn. I hope by now that you've got all of your equipment and ingredients ready. If you haven't, then here's what you're going to need to cook along. Okay, so now that you've got everything ready, let's get cooking. The first part of this recipe is to do our weighing and measuring, and you're going to need 100 grams of self-raising flour and 25 grams of margarine, which we're then going to rub in. We can then add the oats and the sugar afterwards to turn it into that little Dinca Fala cake. So in terms of weighing and measuring, there's lots of ways that you can weigh and measure. The easiest is probably to use a set of weighing scales, and I particularly like using digital weighing scales because you can pop your bowl on, you can press the 0 button, you can add your first ingredient, you then press the 0 button again and you can add your next ingredient, so it saves a lot of time moving it over just like that. However, if you haven't got a set of weighing scales at home, don't panic, because you can easily use a dessert spoon, because one heaped dessert spoon just like that is equal to 25 grams, and we need approximately 100 grams, so using my maths, we need approximately 4 heaped spoonfuls. So I'm just going to add my spoonful just like that. If I hold that up for you just there, I'm hoping that you're able to see what my dessert spoon looks like, and I'm going to add in 2, 3, 4. Now the great thing about the Dinca Fala cake is because it's not an all-in-one sponge mixture, we don't have to be overly precise with the amounts that we're putting in. Now unfortunately I mentioned self-raising flour, but I only had plain flour, but I'm going to make my own self-raising flour. So all that we need to add to our plain flour to make it self-raising is a teaspoon of baking powder. And when I'm talking about a teaspoon, we're not looking for a massive spoonful just like that. I'm hoping you're able to see that. All I'm going to do is get my massive spoonful, scrape it along the side just like that, because what we're actually looking for is a level teaspoon. So all of that is going to go in, and that's going to give our little Dinca Fala that lovely little rise. So I've got those 2 ingredients in there. The third ingredient that I need is my margarine or butter, and I've got 25 grams of margarine or butter. Again, you could use that set of weighing scales, or one heaped sort of spoonful just like that. And if I hold that up, you should be able to see that's 1 spoonful. 1 dessert spoon of margarine is equivalent to 25 grams. So I've got both of those ingredients just in there like that. So this, in a couple of moments, is stage number 1. It's going to be over to you, where you need to weigh out your 100 grams of plain or self-raising flour and 25 grams of margarine, and I'll see you in stage number 2. Okay, so now that you've done that, we can start to do the best bit, which is the rubbing in. And you've got a couple of options when it comes to rubbing in the margarine and the flour. You can either use your hands, or you can use a fork if you don't like getting too messy. However, the first thing we're going to do though, for either method, is we need to cut up our margarine into smaller pieces. So I'm going to save on cooking equipment today. I'm just going to use the handle of my fork, and I'm just going to cut up the margarine into slightly smaller pieces just like that. And what that means is that when we come to rubbing in, it's not going to melt in our hands when we have to make it smaller, right? So that's the first job, and then all I'm going to do is pull those down and pop that into there. Now when we're rubbing in using our hands, the worst thing you can do, and I see lots of people doing this, is they scrunch up their hands like that, and they complain then that they got flour all the way up their hands and also up their arms like that. So the way to do it is just move your hands in just like that, and you just pretend that you're squeezing the margarine between your fingertips into the flour, just as so. So if you do that with me just like that, then all that we're going to do, we're going to look super silly now. Carry on doing that. Turn your hands around though, and you're just going to rub in just like that to add a little bit of air. If you remember, we want our little Dinca Fala to rise, so we need to give it a little bit of air. So this is how we're going to do it, and I like also to follow the 5 rubs and then turn the bowl rule, right? So we don't forget about mixing on this side. So let me show you. The first job is just to lightly coat all of your flour in the margarine rather, in the flour just like that. Then we do 5 mini rubs to make it a little bit smaller. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to troi the pole and turn the bowl. Then we can start to do our proper rubbing in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, troi the pole in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and troi the pole in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and troi the pole in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we turn the bowl. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and turn the bowl. And you can see, if I'm just going to rub my hands just like that so I don't get too much flour all over the place, that I'm starting to rub that in all together. If you're going to use the fork is the same method, right? So you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then turn the bowl. And you can see that all I'm doing is squeezing that margarine and flour onto the side of my bowl just like that in 5 little rubs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and troi the pole in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and troi the pole in, right? So until you get little sort of breadcrumbs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and troi the pole in. Now then, I am 3/4 of the way there, but I've still got lots and lots of lumps of margarine. You've got 2 options with finding your lumps. The long route is to search for each one individually and then bring him out and do a little mini rub. That would take about half an hour, right? But the quick route is just to shake the bowl on the surface. All of your big lumps will come to the top. Then you can do your little mini rubbing in just like that, and you will end up with a perfect little breadcrumbs just like that. And you can see that they've slightly changed colour because all that flour has now been coated in that margarine as well. Then the last thing I'm going to do is just rub my hands, and I've got my crumble or Dinca Fala mixture just there. So once you have done that, you've got 3 other things to add. We've got a little bit of oud just there, a little bit of porridge oats, and we need to add 4 teaspoons of porridge oats, okay? And porridge oats are jam-packed full of fibre, which is going to help us keep us fuller for longer, but also help to keep the food moving around in our bodies. And in this, it gives it a really nice sort of texture and also taste. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we've got our sugar. Now, because we're going to be using some dessert apples, we don't need to add as much sugar to our Dinca Falas. So I'm just going to add 3 teaspoons, right? Level teaspoons. So 1, 2, 3, and that's 3 level teaspoons of caster sugar. And then apples and cinnamon go really, really well together. So I'm just going to add half a teaspoon, about that much on my handle of my cinnamon, just like that. I can leave that in just as so, and you can see those bits just in there. And then the last thing, I'm just going to use my finger just to mix all those around just like that, and you can smell that cinnamon in there, and I promise you these Dinca Fala are absolutely delicious. So I'm off to go and wash my hands in a couple of moments, so it's now over to you. There's some reminders coming up on the screen of how to do your rubbing in, and I will see you in stage number 3. Okay, so now that you've done your rubbing in, we've just got a couple of jobs left in order to make our Dinca Fala. And the first job is to grate our little apple. And you can see I've got a little dessert apple just there. I've chosen to use a dessert apple for this recipe, basically because it's got a nice thin skin, which is jam-packed full of fibre, which, as we know, is going to keep us fuller for longer, but also the food moving around in our bodies, and it's also a little bit sweeter than one of those cooking apples as well. So I've just got that, and we need to grate this down. And there's lots of different graters available in the shops and supermarkets. I've got an oval one just here, or I've got a box one. Now if you're a younger person, please be super careful when using a grater, and don't do what I see lots of adults do, which is just put the grater over whatever they're cooking and they just go grate, because that's when accidents happen. If you're using one of these box graters, the rule that I like to follow is we always do it onto a flat surface. I've just got a little plate just there, and the way that we're going to do our grating is not go grate. We need to grate, move away, grate, move away, grate, move away, which means that we can move our hands and fingers away from the blade of the grater. So let me show you how we're going to do this. So grate, move away, grate, move away, grate, move away, grate, move away, grate down, move away, grate down, move away. Then I'm going to turn my apple. I do exactly the same on that side. Grate down, move away, grate down, move away, grate down, move away, and you sort of get into a little system. As I said, younger people, you might need to ask an adult to help you with this bit. So grate down, move away, grate down, move away, grate down, move away, and you keep on going until you grated that side, and the final side, grate down, move away, grate down, move away, grate down, move away, until that is the only part of the apple that you have got left. And if I pop that into my little waste compost bin just there, I can grate and remove all of the apple from there, and I can remove all of my grated apple using my spoon, and you can see that I've got all of my apple just there, which is now ready to go into our Dinca Fala. If you are using one of these oval graters, then just make sure that the teeth of the grater are running away from you just like that. And as I mentioned with my apple, if I was to get my apple out, we grate down, move away, grate down, move away, grate down, move away, just like that. And that is another safe way of doing it. So all I'm going to do is I've got some spare apple just there. So to make our Dinca Fala, all that we're going to do is make a little well in the centre just like that, and I'm going to add all of my apple just into the centre, just as so, scraping all that down, and I can give that just a little mix or a little cymysgu yn Gymraeg. Mix all of that up, and then you can see that it still needs something to be added to combine it. So I've just got a little spoonful of milk just here, some llaeth. And the way that I like to add my llaeth is we're looking for a slightly sticky-ish sort of dough, right? So don't pour all of your milk in at once. You want between 6 and 8 dessert spoons, right? So I'm going to add 6 to start with. So we're looking for level dessert spoons, so that's 1, and if I put that on an angle, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can always add more, but I can't take any out. And then literally all I'm going to do is start to gently mix it all together. As I said, you can always add more milk, okay? We're not looking for a sloppy mixture, just enough to make a little dough. So I've got that just there, and you can see it's all coming together. I personally think that I might need just 1 small dessert spoon more, because I want a nice clean surface on my bowl just like that. And you can see that we've got a perfect ball of dough just in there. So I'm just going to move that over, and then we're going to start to think about the trays that we're going to be using. Now I'm going to use this little non-stick sort of bun tray just here, because I quite like the way that when you plonk it in, it sort of moulds itself to our little tray just like that. Or you've got other options. You can either do the traditional sort of route where they would butter and flour or grease their little tin just like that, and then they make a little tray of their Dinca Fala and then cut it into little slices afterwards. Or you could go down the rock bun sort of route where you do blobs of your Dinca Fala mixture and then put your oats on afterwards. As I said, I'm going to be using this one just over here, and because it's non-stick, I don't have to add any extra flour whatsoever. And the great thing, I'm just going to use my little spoon just here, and the way that we're going to do it, a little bit on your spoon and scrape it off. It doesn't matter what shape you have on top at the moment, because the great thing, when it starts cooking, it moulds itself to the bottom of the tin. So a little bit on your spoon and scrape it off. You can always add more to our tin afterwards, so that just goes on there just as so. We've got in, die, tree just there, and I've got a little bit of mixture left, so all that I'm going to do is take that out, and I can add just a little bit more mixture to any of the ones that I feel need a little bit more. I'm going to take half off that one and pop that just onto there, and then the final thing, I'm just going to press it down just slightly so it starts to mould. And I like to have it with all those little rocky sort of bits just there, because when they come out of the oven, they're the bits that go nice and crisp. The final thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to sprinkle on a little bit more of our porridge oats or our oud, and that will go really lovely and crispy and give our Dinca Valas a nice texture afterwards. So all of that goes on just like that. Sprinkle all those over, and then those, if I show you those just there, are now ready to go in the oven, 10 to 12 minutes at 190 degrees centigrade. That's gas mark 5, and I promise you these are absolutely blasses iawn. Well, hello and welcome back. I hope that your Dinca Valas are now cooking in the oven. Mine have just come out and this room smells absolutely amazing. If I just take my little towel just here and pick up my little tray to show you in the screen, you should be able to see that they're now nice and golden brown. They've risen really well. You've got all those crusty and crispy sort of edges, and they really do smell absolutely adultly nice. Now then, we need to leave these to cool for at least 15 minutes before we start eating them. So all I'm going to do is very carefully with a little knife is just pop them onto my little cooling wire just like that. If you're a younger person, you may need to ask an adult to help you with this bit. I'm just going to pop those over onto my little tray just like that, and then I can very carefully pop that over just as so. And as I said, I'm going to leave these to cool for about 15 minutes before I have a little healthy treat. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed cooking with me today. I certainly have enjoyed showing you how to make these delicious Dinca Vala. Don't forget that all the recipes are available on our Facebook page as well as our website, which is cookingtogether.co.uk. There's also lots and lots of traditional Welsh recipes available on the museum website also. I look forward to cooking with you again in the future, but in the meantime, cooking your happies.